Coming to you from the shores of sparkling Lake Michigan, the National Writers Series welcomes you to Traverse City, where we're celebrating 15 years as a year-round book festival. We're the premier home for passionate readers who love inspiring conversations with best-selling and award-winning authors. Tonight, we welcome the queen of Italian-American literature, Adriana Trigiani. Trigiani is an adored novelist, celebrated screenwriter, producer, director, and podcast host whose creative work pays homage to her Italian roots. Ever since her debut 25 years ago with The Big Stone Gap, she has consistently brought laughter and tears to her devoted readers. Her new book, The View from Lake Como, a love letter to big Italian-American families, promises to earn her the title of Queen of Italian-American Literature. After all, she's already been knighted by Italy's president with the Order of the Star of Italy for promoting goodwill and positivity about her family's home country. Trigiani will be joined in conversation by Doug Stanton, a #1 New York Times bestselling author of In Harm's Way and 12 Strong. Doug is an alum of Interlochen Arts Academy and co-founded the National Writers Series in 2009 with his wife Anne and attorney Grant Parsons. The National Writers Series salutes our amazing audiences, dedicated volunteers, and generous supporters for helping us raise the next generation of readers and writers through our free education programs across the region. This season of amazing authors is made possible through major support by the Green Brick Foundation, Northgard Technology Group, Golden Fowler Home Furnishings, Prout Financial, and Ward and Mary Bevins Gillette. Tonight's event sponsor is Base Supply and Marketing. Tonight's live streaming is exclusively underwritten by Nancy Davey. Thanks to our major media sponsor, the Traverse City Record Eagle, and our media partner, Interlochen Public Radio. For information on future events, programs, and how to support our nonprofit work, please visit nationalwritersseries.org. Now, please welcome to the stage #1 New York Times bestselling author, Doug Stanton.
Welcome. I hope you're ready to sit back and relax. Adriana Trigiani is a wonderful guest of ours. We're so lucky to have her on this national book tour. She's doing 24 cities, and she just learned today that she's #6 on the New York Times list. First week out. #8 combined, ebook and print, and then #6 on the USA Today, which is actually a very hard list to get onto well because it aggregates a whole bunch of other books. So congratulations to her. She's working very hard. She was here in 2018 with another book. We're so glad to have her back. She does many wonderful things. We're going to talk about those sitting over there in just a moment. But apropos of that, I'm going to introduce to you Addison McGurn, who is our reader tonight. She just finished 8th grade at West Middle School, and she's an incoming freshman at Central, and she's published in our Raising Writers Literary Journal, and she's a wonderful young talent, and your presence really is going to mean a lot to us and to her. So thank you. Please welcome Addison McGurn.
Please note, no witches were burnt alive during the making of this story. Once upon a time, in a dark forest, in a cozy little cottage, there lived an old witch. Of course, her name wasn't actually the witch. That's just what everybody called her. We'll get to that in a minute. The witch, yes, I'm going to call her that, but only because I don't know what her real name is, was collecting herbs and flowers to garnish her baked goods with. You see, the witch owned the best bakery for miles and miles around, and despite her hag-like appearance, people came from everywhere just to taste one of her specialty blueberry muffins. And I can see why they did. Every morning, the witch creates the batter, making sure to add a little extra sugar and butter, spoons it into 3 different sized muffin tins, small, medium, and large, and pops them in the oven to bake. As they rise, the whole area around her cottage starts to smell like heaven, letting her customers know that she's just about to open for the day. And it's not just the muffins themselves that are amazing. The witch makes her own fruit preserves from what she picks off of the trees in her orchard in the fall and drizzles them on top of her muffins right after they come out of the oven. Then she puts them on the windowsill to cool while she cleans up the kitchen. So you see, she's not the green, child-eating monster that she's characterized as. And she definitely doesn't have any warts. Crash. Oh my goodness. Something very bad has just happened in... yes, that's right. I haven't told you about how this whole thing works yet. Well, I better explain before we get into anything too crazy. You see, the witch lives in a book in my library, along with every other fairy tale character that was ever created. They're kept in this book so that their stories can just keep repeating themselves over and over again. I suppose they'd get tired of the same incident refreshing itself if they knew it was happening. Now, don't ask me why the book is in my library. It just showed up there one day, and I felt as though it was my responsibility to look after it. Sometimes I like to narrate the stories while they're unraveling, because they play out like a movie right on the page. It makes me feel more connected to the characters. Well, anyway, let's get back to the story. I think I'll just let the witch take it from here, if that's okay. Crash. I dashed to the window, only to see my beloved, right out of the oven, blueberry muffins splattered all over the floor. To be frank, I was more confused than angry. Does a perfectly content pan of delicious muffins that were sitting on a windowsill just suddenly decide to jump off? No, because that doesn't happen. So let me tell you, I was a little concerned about how my muffins got off the windowsill in the first place. So I did what any normal person would do. I stuck my head out of the window to see what was going on. And what did I see huddled under my magnolia bushes? 2 small children who looked to be about the ages of 5 and 7. The older one was a boy with messy red hair. He was wearing what looked to be a canvas sack that had been repurposed into a shirt, and baggy pants with patches of all different sizes and colors on them. The younger one was a girl. She had long hazelnut-colored hair that hung in 2 braids down her back. She also had on a long brown-sleeve shirt, and on top of it, a canvas material dress that was ripped at every possible hem. Both of the kids looked dirty and unwashed. And another thing, neither of them had shoes on. My goodness, you just couldn't help but feel bad for them. Well, hello down there, I said as sweetly as I could, while still sticking my head out of the window. The children looked back at me with innocent, frightened looks on their faces. My dears, whatever happened to you 2? Neither of them responded. So after a moment of awkward eye contact, I said, "You stay right there. I'll be right around the front." As you could imagine, I was quite surprised by the idea of some small children sitting in my garden, tipping over my muffins and who knows what else. But as you can also imagine, I was concerned for them. So on my way to the front door, dozens of questions were going through my mind. For example, why were they in the woods at this time of day? Where were their parents, and were they looking for them? And when was the last time they had a bath? When I got into the front yard, the kids were no longer sitting underneath my windowsill, but standing in front of me. Something I noticed right away, both of them had terrible posture. Their shoulders were hunched, and their heads hung just slightly too close to their chests. "Well," I said, not quite knowing how to talk to children. After all, I have none of my own. "I guess we should..." Before I could finish, the boy's eyes got wide, and he screeched, "It wasn't us. We didn't do anything. Please don't hurt us or eat us or do whatever witches in the forest do to kids." So after taking a step back, I was a bit offended by this comment, considering that no one had ever called me a witch before, and frankly, I didn't think of myself as one. Before I could say anything, the little girl leaped around to face the boy and said, "Hansel, don't you dare even try to lie. You tipped over this lady's muffin pan, and you know it." Let me tell you, I was quite surprised by how powerful this child's voice was, coming from such a small girl. Then she turned to me and said, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. We're just very hungry. You see, we ran away and came across your cottage this morning. My brother," she gestured to the boy behind her, "thought your muffins smelled so good, and he tried to convince me to steal one. Of course I said no, because you see, I'm not the one to take or beg for anything. Although my stomach has been grumbling for the past," she trailed off and appeared to be counting on her fingers. I took this as my chance to step in. Why, it's all right, dear. I was just about to pull them out of the pan anyway. Would you care to join me in making another batch? I said this in the least creepy way possible, although I still think I must have scared the living daylights out of the poor boy. How do I know this, you ask? Well, he suddenly turned and sprinted off into the forest, yelling, "I'm going home, Gretel. Have fun getting roasted and eaten alive by that witch." Again, offensive. The girl and I turned to each other and smiled. "Ah, Gretel, is it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Well," I sighed lightly, "we better get to making those muffins or they won't be ready in time for my shop to open." The smile on Gretel's face was as large as a crescent moon, and she giggled slightly before saying, "You own a bakery?" "Why, yes, I do. And in fact, I think you would be the perfect employee." "Really? You mean it?" "Of course. How would you like to be taste tester?" Gretel smiled that beautiful moon smile again as we walked hand in hand into my cottage. Over the years, I've gotten to know Gretel not only as my friend, but my family, as she now lives with me. In fact, I affectionately gave her the nickname of Amorino, meaning little love in Italian. As for Hansel, he's made it his mission to spread lots of rumors about me, aka the witch. Some of them include eating and or enslaving Gretel, throwing her back out into the woods to fend for herself, and leaving her to get eaten by a pack of wolves. There are lots more variations that are far more gory, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Right now, I'm just content watching Gretel grow up and having someone to share my recipes with. Although I do sometimes wonder, where did Hansel get the idea for a house made of sweets? Because that sounds fabulous. So over time, as you can imagine, the witch's story has been twisted and turned in every which way. Ha ha, I'm hilarious, I know. But as for her cozy cabin and delicious blueberry muffins, well, they remain the same. So no matter what stories you hear about the witch, you know the real one. And one last thing, if you ever find out what her actual name is, do tell me. I'd love to know. Thank you.
You know, you guys are in an easy room and she got laughs. That's pretty hard to do. Wow, she's 14. Your presence here tonight, yes. Keep it going, Addie. We want you back when you publish your first novel. You can be on this stage. You can do this right here. Listen, you have something in your program. It's a QR code. Everyone get something. If you would be so kind as to look at that and scan it when you have a moment, and if you're so inclined, vote for Adriana Trigiani at the CBS Morning Show Book Club. And it's a big deal, and it's audience sourced, just crowdsourced as we are here. And so I know I would really appreciate it if you would do that. So we'll see what happens. Her book is already climbing the charts anyway, but this is certainly would be another boon to the book. Our guest really needs no further introduction. You saw that beautiful video roll done by Kendall Kocher, our marketing director. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome again to the stage Adriana Trigiani. Please come out.
My favorite place on earth, right here.
How are you?
I'm very good, Jack. How are you?
I'm just fine.
Be a little sedate now. Came out here screaming and smiling. It's great.
Well, it's been a while, but it was so nice to have you back. You were here with Kiss Carlo and Cooking with My Sisters.
That's right.
And sat on this stage and talked about those characters. But we're here tonight to talk about Jess Capodimonte.
Sure.
And the new book, The View from Lake Como. Como, not Cuomo.
You know what?
The View from Lake Como would be very different.
People really loved Mario Cuomo, and they put him on the cover of my book all the time. And I always have to say, well, it's an easy, well, it's kind of the same word almost, without the you. without the you.
You write. What's the view from Lake Como? In
Well-
words, if the audience hasn't read the book yet.
Well, there's two Lake Comos, one in New Jersey and one in Italy. And what I wanted to do was write the story that begins in America, because, you know, you can't just write a novel about something that happens. You then have to somehow, what am I telling you? You're #1 New York Times bestseller. Well, why am I preaching to Dougie here? He should be preaching to me. Anyway, when I was researching this book, and by research I mean it starts maybe 20 years in advance of writing it, we went to a wedding, my husband and I, in Spring Lake, New Jersey at St. Catherine's. And Catherine wasn't spelled like Catherine of Siena. Is anybody here Catholic? Okay, 42 of you. I'm right. Incredible. There will be no raffles or bingo tonight. So I went to this church with my husband, and I couldn't believe the interior and the exterior, but I couldn't believe this church. It was completely built of Carrara marble. And the reason the name was spelled differently instead of Catherine of Siena is because a gentleman who was Irish and English lost his daughter, and he wanted to build the most beautiful cathedral in the United States in her memory. So he did. And he brought the Carrara marble over from Italy. What I love about this story is kind of every nationality is reflected in it, because there were the Italian marble folks. There was the German designer. There was the Irish mural artist. I mean, it's really an incredible story. So I just sort of put it in the back of my mind 20 years ago, and then I wanted to retell or do a new telling of my great-grandmother's story, but I had written this book called The Good Left Undone, and I love to write a historical, but I thought, I want to set it in the present so that I could really do comedy. Because the past, is hilarious as it is, you already know what happened. So I found out that this little town called Lake Como, New Jersey, had recently changed its name. And this is an American idealism story, if there ever was one. So the town was called South Belmar. There's Belmar, South Belmar, and Spring Lake. But instead of continuing to call it South Belmar, because it had become kind of a dump between the two nicer towns. And the people of Lake Como came together and said, we will not stand for this. We have a Lake Como, we're going to change the name of the town. The lake there was called Lake Como, and then there's the beach. I was just there yesterday. So they put it to vote. And the people had such a profound sense of history and pride in their lineage, their heritage, that they decided to change the town to Lake Como. And then they reversed their fortunes. I was just there. I mean, you can bike around the lake, and the houses are beautiful and everything. A lot like here, okay? Beautiful neighborhoods, gorgeous gardens, just get this feeling of just beauty. And so now I had the historical backdrop for this character's journey. Something
about a nightgown, though, with Giuseppina?
Oh, yeah.
Came to a book tour?
Yeah. I have this cousin, Monica. Shows up everywhere I go. But I'm on a book tour, and Doug and Ann will tell you, I have like a tiny bag with me. I figure out how to get it down to the essence. But then my cousin Monica shows up with giant boxes of memorabilia that only I should be the ward of in my family. So I was in Philadelphia, this is about 8 years ago, and she shows up with this giant Bamberger's box, and it was full of the remains of, I guess, possessions of my great-grandmother Giuseppina. Her shoes were in there, her purse, with the wallet and everything in it. She was an Italian immigrant from Venice. And this nightgown, and this nightgown was stunning. It was simple cotton, but on the placket, it was her signature, Giuseppina, and then it was embroidered in red thread. This was a style 130 years ago. Every girl had, or woman had that, had their name. But it also told me that my great-grandmother could write. And I saw her handwriting. So I put this thing I cleaned it and pressed it and put it in a bag, and I kept it on my desk, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then built the story from the nightgown out. The story of my great-grandmother.
When the novel opens, you say something like, or Jess says she's broken. She's living in her parents' basement. She's 34, 35. She doesn't know what to do with her life. And it's really her story about identity. And it's a fascinating read. I highly recommend it. And it's a very funny book as well. There's a character in there named Uncle Louie.
Oh, I love Uncle Louie.
Are these, you said you write about family. That's your subject. Is Uncle Louie a family member? Did you know an Uncle Louie?
Yes.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. The thing about Uncle Louie is when you're in a big family, regardless of your nationality, relationships form. Excuse me. Relationships form. And in this particular situation, Jess, is very close to her uncle. But her mother is his sister, and they all live around the lake, and they fight. They fight, and they go to the island. Now, do you know what the island is? It's where you send people when you're not talking to them. And through the years, this is what happened. And so Jess would sneak down the street to see her aunt and uncle and keep their relationships. And so she never fell out with them, but she certainly didn't let her mother know where she went. So when she turned 18, she began to work for her uncle in the family business. So you see, her mother was not in the family business, and it comes out in the book that she was terrible with the public. And this is a sales job. And it turns out that his niece, Jess, Louie's niece, has great artistic talent. And she's a draftsman. So he imports the marble, she designs, and they implement the designs. So it's a symbiotic relationship, a very honest relationship, until it isn't.
Which is the big twist and hook in the book, which we won't reveal, but it's worth waiting for, right? Therapy, do I have that right?
You do.
You did some research on, because Jess is involved in online therapy, right? Which is not a spoiler. What was that, you said something interesting. What was that research like, or what?
Well, I do a podcast called You Are What You Read. Does anybody listen? You do? Oh, thank God. Otherwise, why are we toiling, Doug? Really? Thank you. So, you are what you read, and you get sponsors on these things. You work for a platform, and one day they had me read ad copy for this company called, now see, mine is called Therapy. It's called something like B Therapy or something. I made my own up. And they said, along with the ad, we're going to give you a free session. I was like, how long is a session? Is it 3.5 years long? Because that's how much therapy I need. No, it was just one free session. And it was really very interesting. So I thought, what an interesting way to kind of try to heal yourself. But she's the beginning of this novel, as you pointed out, Doug, she's really at the bottom of the barrel at this point. She's divorced. Nobody understands why. He's the nicest, most handsome man in town. She's been in love with him since she was a girl. How could this not work out? But as the novel goes on, of course, you find out why. And it's that wonderful area of love where it's somebody you loved as a child, you know, and then you grow into it, you know, like it is in the movies. It's never that way in real life, but that's okay. Well, anyway, so Uncle Louis hires her, and that's her sustaining relationship. Not really the romantic love that she thought it would be. And so she begins this journey to change her life because the old one isn't working. And so for anybody in the audience that's going to read it, you'll see how she does it. And one component of that is the therapy. Except I changed it because I thought this was a funny concept. So if I signed up for more than the free one, which I didn't, I would stay with the therapist until the therapist either didn't want to do it or I don't want to do it. But I thought, how hilarious if she signs up for something and she doesn't know it's a different therapist every week. So she gets invested in it. So that's how I kind of, yeah.
Therapy helpful?
I think talking, you know, there's a lot of stuff if you're Catholic. Like, why don't you go talk to the priest? He's free. Because I'd be getting what I paid for, okay? So I think all manners of exploration of the spirit and the wellness of the body and mind, I think that it's worth it, Doug. I do. And you can, and I'm not saying everybody run out and get therapy, but know when you need help. Women in particular suffer in silence. Men, well, they say it's worse for the men because the men don't naturally communicate their feelings. I frankly wish they'd keep their feelings to themselves. I find it exhausting. No, I'm kidding. Bring us your problems because we really don't have enough to do already. So, yeah.
You pointed out that the average age of the American widow is 57.
That's right. That's right.
And so the real sustaining relationship in a woman's life she should realize that and pay attention to what? Herself, the relationship with her own soul. I don't know how you put it in an article I read, but
Yeah. Well,
that was a shocking stat, by the way.
it's a shocking stat, but if you sit down and think about your own life and your aunts and your cousins, and all of a sudden you start to go poof poof, the men are gone.
Poof,
I mean,
poof.
that's very. Not you, Doug. Won't happen to you. You will be here forever. It presents an interesting dilemma for women.
Go there. Yeah, go there.
If they know it's coming or have like some consciousness about it, maybe it'll make you be happier on the way to your 57th birthday. If you know you're going to be alone. Maybe not. I don't know. That's kind of why I write. So I'm trying to figure this stuff out. But when someone tells me they're a widow, my first question is always, did you like him? And about 40% of the time, no, she did not. That's just my national poll as I go from town to town. I think it's important to find out if you really liked him. Because why are we getting sad over this if you didn't really like him, you know? And then there's the other thing that happens, and I've just seen this recently. The man passes away and the widow's left behind, and she makes him into a saint and rebuilds the storyline, only remembers the good stuff. But I think that's true of all manner of loss. I think we remember the good stuff. And, right? Like, even if you had a really mean parent, maybe, you just remember the time he took you for ice cream. You don't remember the time he hit you over the head with a tire iron, you know? And that might be good. That might be a good thing, that denial.
You're
Doug, the look on your face is, oh, really? Oh, gosh. That's funny. Okay.
Okay, so I was just thinking of your father coming home and playing the piano
Yes.
after work. I think of your mother, the librarian, and your 7 children in the house in Big Stone Gap, having moved from Rosetta, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
You know, we've kind of skipped over the whole other part of Adriana's life, which was this Italian-Virginia nexus, right?
Yeah, I'm an Appalachian.
Yeah, of course.
You
knew that.
I'm actually an Italian. That's what they call us in Appalachia. Them Italians. Them Italians.
The family is so important in your work, and we're learning about it. Did it hold you back? Do you ever feel like you're being held back by your family? Or, I mean, Jess certainly feels she has to push through certain boundaries, right? She's got to leave.
Held back. That's interesting.
Super defined.
I don't think it would have been possible to hold me back, because I got the memo. I really got the memo. And I think it was, okay, first let me say about my family, of my family of origin, we're real close. There's 7 kids. And we fight, but we make up. But the thing that we do really well together is support each other and work together. So, for example, I just did 10 nights in theaters with my brother's band, did a night of comedy, which we'll bring here someday, Doug. We will, we could do some, yeah, we'll do it for the conference. But it was transformative for me. And you would think, yeah, I've been around. What could transform me now? But my brother Michael was with the band. My brother Carlo was the tour manager. My daughter was my dresser. See how this goes? My husband figured the lighting out. My sisters are planning book events. I mean, I can't imagine my life without them. And I know I'm lucky because I still have them. Our parents are gone. And really and truly, like anytime any of us gets an honor, we sort of look at each other like, what's the point? Because they're not here anymore. Now, I didn't have perfect parents. But they were, now my mother probably was perfect. We were scared of my dad. But that was the way they did it then. People often ask me, like, well, my kid won't leave. And I said, hit him. He'll leave. You see him? Just hit these kids. If you hit them, they'll leave. And they'll be gone fast. And you'll see them at Christmas. That's it. So, but I have to tell you, as close as we are, I don't think you need that element of punishment like that. I don't think listen, I don't run the world, but I didn't appreciate that. I really did. I don't like it. And, like now, like when you go to get your nails done, and then they'll rub your neck, and then they'll start pounding you. I said, I don't think I'd do that if I were you, because I'll hit you, when you go for a thing. Get the knots out, But everything came full circle with my dad. And he realized at the end of his life, he said to me, that was a really bad idea. For me to be the bad cop and your mother to be the good cop. Because, see, it defanged her, too, in a certain way, right? We were reverential to our mother. And he did play the piano. He was very artistic. And I always said to him, you should have been in show business. So because he didn't, I guess on some level, I knew I could do it. By the way, I think literature is show business. I think any time that you open up a book and you're in a world and it's being dramatized on the page, I think it's show business. And my father didn't want me to go into show business.
What do you want you to do? Manufacture?
He told me that a person can only work in food, clothing, and shelter to be guaranteed a career. It's pretty interesting. He was in the schmata business. He was a garment manufacturer. And he always wanted to open a restaurant. Like, he really stuck to his rules. And then at one point, he put up apartments. Shelter.
So when you went to St. Mary's College in Indiana, you've, like Jess, left, right? Was that a big break for the family, from the family?
Well, first of all, I was young when I got to St. Mary's. I was younger than the other girls. Because as Catholics, you're put in kindergarten as soon as you can walk. So I was already unsophisticated. I was from Appalachia. But my two older sisters were at St. Mary's. In fact, all 5 girls ended up going there. We're huge fans of St. Mary's. And one of my beloved classmates, Barb Benson, is here. And we were like riding around today just going, boy, wasn't it the happiest times? Like, we loved our college experience because it was a nurturing environment, challenging environment, but the girls were great. So, I was not cowed by college. I could not do the work because I wasn't prepared. But I got smart fast because the idea that I would be thrown out scared me enough to, like, really do my job.
Tell the story about doing plays on the bus in this community. You actually performed for the people sitting.
Well, we had a comedy troupe called The Outcasts. And who the Outcasts were is I just picked the weirdest girls on campus to be in a comedy troupe with me. They were all different and all strange, and including me. And I taught them improv, even though I was learning it from a book, basically. And I said, we're going to ride. There was a shuttle bus between Notre Dame and St. Mary's that went along the back road. And I said, this will be our stage. So what I would do is I would prompt the girls. We would act like we were riding the bus, when in fact, the minute the passengers were on, we began the play. And the play could go something like this. 2 girls, even though the bus was semi-empty, standing holding the strap on the bar, and they're talking about something that had happened to them. So I'd throw them a prompt, like, you were thrown out of Howard Hall because the priest monitor caught you in a room after midnight. Boom, then they'd start talking. So it began to cross real and acting. I loved that. But some people did think it was true, which it wasn't. Then we did stage shows, and we incorporated a band.
So that's like what you're doing today, in a way, with your brother.
Doug, I keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping I'm going to get better at it. I was thinking about this on the way here, like, why did I start to do this differently all of a sudden? Well, it's an easy answer, and I didn't realize it till I got to Traverse City, is my daughter grew up. I couldn't do it when she was little. And one thing my mother said to me when I had my daughter, she said, always put your family first. Do everything you want to do. See, she was deprived of that. She was a librarian, and my father was not having it, even though his mother worked. And his mother-in-law worked. It was the 50s, you know. They got married like in 1957. It was like he dialed back the clock on my mom. And I always used to say, you never had to salt the food in our house because my mother cried into the dinner every night.
How did you turn out to be such an optimist, though? Because I think you are.
Sounding optimistic? I just love being here so much I can hardly stand it. I hope that I'm answering honestly.
No, I'm serious.
Oh, you mean you're serious about my optimism?
That was not.
Oh, because I was going to say, was I being negative?
No.
You're not very self-aware for somebody who took one free lesson in therapy. It didn't really work, Doug, I don't think. Why am I an optimist? I'll tell you what. I really believe in people. I'm from Appalachia. Even when people didn't like us, I found a way to like them, to communicate. Whenever I work in any area, if it's in publishing, and I had to do a call, Doug was down there, I was like, I gotta do this call. What are we doing for the reader? I don't make a cover because I like it. See, I don't subscribe to that idea that I'm writing for myself. When I write for myself, I write poetry that no one will ever read. But I write this for you. I write it for you to read, Doug, for Ann to read, for everybody here to read it. I'm not interested in doing things to be fancy or outright somebody else. I'm trying to spin a yarn for you that you're going to enjoy because of the nature of life. It's difficult. It's difficult.
That's what I mean by the sweetness of the optimism. When you write, do you hear a voice? And if you do, what is that voice? You've just kind of intimated one here.
I understand.
I mean, do you compose on a? Do you think ahead, or do you just start to compose?
Well, because it's just us here today, just us. I believe that every creative endeavor is a journey of the soul, and I believe that faith is a belief in that journey. So, I'm optimistic because I believe in the hereafter. And I believe that the people that we love are in the mansion with many rooms. I just believe it. Now, do I have proof of that? Well, faith is the belief in things unseen. And to me, that at its heart, Doug, is optimism. Like if you really, I tell you, these questions have been coming up lately, so I don't think there's an accident to them. I was just talking to Katie Couric about the same thing. And she was really probing me about this stuff, and I was like, well, that's an interesting thing to ask me. Because we tend to think about our discussion of any kind of faith idea or creative idea as something uniquely private. But I think it's to be shared. Now, everybody doesn't have to write, but you do have to find some way to connect and express the journey of your soul. And you know people in your life that have done it by doing small things, by being a teacher who sees that kid that's really struggling and figures out how to communicate with that child, however that would be. Or in a marriage, you know, when you're bored with each other, but you made a promise and you know you have to keep it. And maybe you want to hit him over the head with a tire iron, but you can't really do that because that would be assault. To me, any creative endeavor, and that includes our relationships, falls under that category. I'm glad that this is vodka.
All right. Yeah. I just forgot completely what I was going to ask you.
That's great.
Oh, I know what it was. So I have this question I like to ask about the story we tell. There's a couple of ways to ask this question. What is the story we need right now? If you could look down from this opera house or this city or this country, and you could see things pulsing, and that's just, and I would imagine that's the country telling its story to you. It's heating up here, it's cooling there. And I think we as artists absorb that. You wrote this book for a reason now, right? You didn't write it 10 years ago, and you might not write it again in 5, right?
You're right. You're right. That's really fascinating.
So I'm wondering why you wrote it now, and why was it the story you needed now?
Well, you know, when you're writing a book and you're working with an editor, you kind of do a log line, and mine was, a woman has to rebuild her life and the house that goes with it. As we go on in life, we realize that our needs become very, very simple. You know, when you're young, you really want a purse. Or you want tickets on the 50-yard line that cost a fortune. But as you go on, those are just 2 examples of how to spend your money. But the Italian ethic has emerged in me in a very deep way, which is to say, really, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? And you come tonight believing you're seeking something. Because it's very easy for me to be in your seat and you to be here. This is an interchangeable thing. Now, why am I telling you this? Last year in the United States of America, 3.8 million books were self-published. We talked about this at lunch. I want you to think about that for a second. 3.8 million. That's a lot of storytelling. And stories are each individually different from one another. There's only one common bond in that, is that person's need to tell it. This is profound because it means that we value connecting to one another more than we value dazzling one another or being better than the next guy, having the better purse, the better seats at the football game. What we really, really value is, this is my story, will you read it? That's huge to me.
And you work on that. Yes, it is. That's... Adriana and her world work in Virginia, something called the Origins Project, and you're really enabling young people.
Well, it's like what you're doing. We bonded over the kids' stuff first, I think.
Yeah.
And look, if you guide a child to keep a journal, they begin to see their experience. Now, to back up that journal writing and reading, you got to control the phone and that nonsense. Look, I didn't allow my kid, I'm not the best mother in the world, I'm a tough mother, but I did not allow her on that social media. She's 23. I said no. I watched what it did to other kids. And I tried with the other mothers to say, we can't allow this. I turned into my dad because my dad was the one always in big stone cap. The children shouldn't be doing it. We didn't get to do it. See?
You say allow this. What do you not want to allow? The constant looking at the phone, or the? I mean, what do they?
I don't think there should be phones in schools.
Yeah.
I do not think that a child under the age of 16 should have any interaction with social media whatsoever. None. I think phones, parents should regulate the phone. I think if you have a kid that needs to be picked up from ball practice, you get them a flip phone, and they can text you. But they should not have constant interaction on the internet. It is an unregulated cesspool. And it's also terrific. I have a tumor. Can I look it up? Sure. AI, the same thing. So these are tools. They are not means to an end. But when a kid is glued to the phone, this is not, we don't have to be geniuses to know it's going to affect their brain. How do we know? Because we know when we pick up a book and read it that we are changed by it. You're never worse for having read a book, but you are worse for having picked up a phone. I kind of hate it. I hate being tired. Like your ticket's on there now. How about me standing there? You know, oh, it was here a second ago. Meanwhile, there's 47 minutes, 200 people, and you're still trying to find. This is the stuff I find crazy. It's like, and that's the elimination of it makes it an ease in a society. But could we be better with these inventions? We could. There's some terrific aspects to this. But I see too often that the children are handed a phone, you know, without thought behind it, because everybody else has one. Well, you remember what used to happen. We said, was everybody else doing it? And your father would say, no, you're not going. And, you know, you'd be like, oh, I'm living in a prison. But the point was, maybe it was good for us on some level. But the parents listen, the parents are terrific today, and so are the kids. Trust me, they are. There's wonderful things about the kids now. I have interns, they're amazing.
What's wonderful about, I mean, what do you mean by that?
Oh. They have, their creativity is unlocked. You know, when we were taught how to write, we were prejudging it before we even did it. They have more of a flow to their inner voice than we did. They're encouraged to express themselves in a certain way. And we could talk about the difference between boys and girls, because I'm really annoyed about the latest stuff about the boys are falling behind and the colleges are full of girls. Every time a girl gets 2 steps forward, they kick us 2 steps back. Now the boys are behind. Now we got to tamp down the girls. So can't we keep the girls accelerating and the boys accelerating? Well, how hard is this? And the thing that makes me the craziest is these crackpots out there with those theories. They ain't raising these kids. The women are. That's another thing we're doing wrong. We get blamed for everything. Everything. Now, are we tough? Can we handle it? Yes. But here's what women do that the men don't do. Back me up on this, Doug. Because you're a man.
All right.
Women can very easily, in deference to the needs of every person around her, put herself dead last. Now, I'm going to give you a small example of that, because I'm circling the drain. Who cares? I'm just going to tell it like it is. I was home one night, and I was watching TV late at night, flipping around, and I saw this thing. And back in the day, well, maybe 20 years ago, I had done Pilates. And they got this machine called a reformer. Does anybody do Pilates here? This is a gigantic albatross of a piece of equipment. And I said to myself, oh, I could bring up the exercises on my phone. I'm going to order it. I'm going to order this machine. Now, keep in mind, I have to sidebar, don't let me get lost, Doug, but I had ordered this chair from Susan Lucci on Home Shopping. Because she's tiny, and I saw her on TV doing like this. I was like, that looks easy. I'm ordering it. That thing came, and there's instructions, tighten the wire. I ordered it in a Carolina blue. Beautiful. Had it in my office. I sat in the chair, and I started to do the things, and it projectiled me across the room, and I hit the wall. Later, I met Susan Lucci in person because she was going to star in the Very Valentine movie. And she got sick and couldn't do it. Went to lunch with she and her husband. And I tell Helmut, he's now in heaven, but I say to Helmut, I go, Helmut, I ordered the chair. He said, you did? What did you think of the chair? He had a German accent. I said, I got in the thing and it threw me across the room. I told Susan the chair don't work. And I love her, and I hope I get to work with her someday. We laughed. I said, you know, that's for her. She's already a tight wire. So I'm telling you this because I put myself dead last. Preparing for this tour, I bought this machine in January. It's not even out of the box. I didn't even use it once. Now I'm fantasizing about when I'll use it. Oh, maybe next year I'll try it. I'll take it out of the... Do you hear what I'm saying? This is crazy. This is crazy. So it's like because everything else had to be done. And I always say to myself, I'm strong. I'm strong. I could do this. I remember my mother, 7 kids, hauling that laundry up and down the stairs, and it'd be like, oh, I should help her. But I'm so weak, I just can't. But she just did her thing. She did what had to be done. Ponder on those people sometimes, because that's where you find who you are. How you connect to that. It's very interesting. So women putting themselves last would get blamed for everything. All right, what else is new, you know? Okay, we get to live longer. That's good. That extra 7 years is pretty tasty. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I had a friend said, we have a friend whose husband is 10 years younger. We were out to lunch with her, and she says, I wish he was 20 years younger than me now. You know, see? It's never enough. Never enough. Yeah, I'm sorry, Doug, I went on a sidebar there, but you get what I'm saying. So can't we elevate our girls and our boys at the same time? Why not? It's not that hard. And a lot of boys, I think, college doesn't appeal to them. But make them all lifelong readers. Make them all lifelong readers. If a young man wants to be an electrician, or your daughter wants to be an electrician, and it's a trade, encourage the trade, because the trade takes a certain brilliance. Innovation, repetition, service. Think about it. It's all good.
I see that value of service when I read about you and your family. I mean, the Origins Project, you have something about, you feel that writing is making a living with your hands and being able to sell it and put food on the table. You have a very, you identify as a working class kind of person, right? You said no vacations for the family, right? They didn't take any. That is, I think, is that how you're so productive? I mean, you've written 21 novels in 25 years. You've been working at this for 25 years. When do you work? I mean,
directed a couple movies in there.
Right, exactly.
I'm good at time management. I really think I am. Also, I don't have any hobbies. I think if I golfed, I'd be dead. Or say played tennis, that's a couple hours a week.
What do you do when you're
Modern
not
dance, that would have killed my career.
Do you do anything besides? I mean, do you garden or do you watch movies or? You do the thing with the chair. It's
the thing with the. When you see Susan Lucci, she has the most incredible body I've ever seen in my life. It's like a wire, you know? But that chair was not good. Maybe the reformer will be better. No, you know, we finally got rid of the chair because my husband said, you're never going to use it. I said, I feel bad, like Susan will find out I got rid of it, like I didn't use it. What was the question, Doug?
Well, I mean, I know your husband's, he works on the Today Show. He goes to bed at 6 p.m. and wakes up at 2 a.m.
He goes at 6 p.m. and goes to work at 2 a.m. But he's a lighting designer and he loves his work. And he did Letterman for 18 years. And if that isn't the most beautiful, exquisite lighting on television, I don't know what is. You can still see his work on YouTube, yeah. Yeah.
So when do you work? I'm just curious, like, what is that family rhythm like? He's gone.
Okay. Full disclosure, I had office jobs to make money when I got to New York, and that was torture. Because you had to get up really early and be somewhere dressed. And I always, whenever I went to work at Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith for $6 an hour, I was worth every penny. As a secretary, my hair was always wet. I could never time anything. And I would pray and pray on this, like, oh, just let me be a full-time writer so I don't have to worry about these things. This going places was killing me. Imagine how I feel now after COVID when people don't want to go back to the office. I kind of can relate to them. But I have to tell you, I don't work in a chair or in my bed or anything. I get dressed and go into the room that is my office. And it is a work day. I find when I learned to get up 2 hours earlier, it changed my life. Because I'm not, like, I don't wake up like ready to roll. I allow 20 minutes with the coffee, thinking, slowly coming into my day. So I get up 4:30, sometimes 4. I know that sounds horrible, but if you go to bed at 8 o'clock, it's fantastic. I always sleep enough. And then I've learned to do this, and I found the great ones do this. I am not one of the great ones, but we can always copy them. Which is, when I'm working and it's not coming together like I think, and I'm like, what am I trying to say? I lay down on the floor and take a nap. 15 minutes. And I go, okay, 15 minutes, that's all you're getting. And I wake up. And then I have it, and I can get back into it. So I pace myself like that. And then other things that I do is it seems like a nothing, but for every project I write, I have a scent that goes with it.
A scent?
And I burn a candle, and I have oils in that scent. Okay? Now, this was like sea salt and vanilla, because it smelled to me like New Jersey on the shore. And I get the candles, and I have my own system. And then it's the only thing I burn till I'm done. So in the morning, I light the candle. Surround yourself with the things that you need to feel good. And don't be cheap with yourself. I have to have a scent. I like leaving a room and returning to the scent. It conjures something in me. I also like to have something really hot. I love coffee. Do you like coffee? You know, I've got to tell you, I don't think people say enough about coffee. I think it's divine. And one of the great joys of my life is early in the morning, standing at the window with that coffee, just like I like it.
This is in your house in Greenwich Village in New York City?
Yeah, in our house in Greenwich Village. It's a very old house. And there's a lot of house now because there's only 2 of us there. But my husband, it only took us 27 years, but I now have my library, which I hope you will all come and visit, and I'm not kidding, because it's astonishing. He figured out how to do it where they're the indentations, very old. The house was built in 1838. Oh yeah, it's ancient. And then there's these cutouts in these parlors, and my husband finally, and it's been the great joy of my life. And then I'm thinking what I will do with those books eventually, see? So when you go home, look around and say, what would make this place, my dwelling place, more conducive to the journey of my soul? What would do that? See, for me, it's very simple things. And I learned from my husband about lighting. Lighting is really important. When you throw on an overhead light, it's general lighting. But when you get little lamps and put them around, it brings you down to the glow. And that helps me work too. Those little tricks. And you look good in low lighting.
Yeah.
Which is, it's important.
It's almost time to go to questions from the audience. I know there are many out there, but before we do, would you mind reading something from the new novel, The View from Lake Como?
Well, there's a point when Jess, who's our protagonist, is really scared she's going to lose her uncle, Louis, who, let's face it, she's been working with him since she was 18. She's 34, 35 years old. And she can't imagine the world without him, and she doesn't feel like she's had enough time with him. And in her own family, she assumed a role where she was put upon. She got married, but then the marriage didn't work out, so she sort of became the maiden-aunt. And in every culture has a maiden-aunt. So she's looking at her uncle, and she says, I felt tremendous guilt whenever my mother and uncle had a falling out, which, if I'm being honest, seemed to happen frequently through the years. I had to remain loyal to my mother, but I was torn. Aunt Lil and Uncle Louie are my godparents. I was in their house every chance I got. Their home was quiet, warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Nothing was broken. They had plush carpeting in every room. They never ran out of cold soda and potato chips. Aunt Lil and I would watch General Hospital together every day at 3 p.m. if I was around. Luke and Laura and Sonny and Carly were like family, even though they had better hair. It was Uncle Louie who took me to see the Jonas Brothers in the city when I was 15. It was Uncle Louie who took me to my first ice show in Atlantic City. Holiday on Ice with Brian Boitano. I wanted to marry that ice skater someday. It was Uncle Louie who broke it to me that Brian would probably not want to marry me. It was Uncle Louie who gave me my first diamond ring. It had a chip so small, you had to rotate it in the noonday sun to see a glint of sparkle. But still, it was real. When it no longer fit, I wore it on a gold chain around my neck. Still do. It was Uncle Louie who cried through my wedding and danced with every woman in the room at my reception before he formed the conga line that included our 97-year-old cousin Schema Romano in his wheelchair. My uncle has feted, celebrated, and done right by me all of my life. No wonder it seems like I've been working for him for 16 minutes instead of 16 years. He roots for me, and he doesn't have to. He could have been the typical Italian-American godfather and given me a check for my birthday, a crisp $50 bill, and a white pearl-handed girl purse for my first Holy Communion, a novena card, and an Atta Pearl gold necklace for confirmation, and a savings bond and extra cash to cover the plate when I got married. He's done so much more for me than the obligatory gifting. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Wow, thank you. That's beautiful, and the book is filled with that kind of warmth. You know, it's funny, I learned, we were talking, that there's so much more to talk about. You'll have to come back. But when you got your first TV gig, and you watched The Waltons, the Waltons was a favorite show of yours. And there's something about, good night, John Boy, good night.
I was so in love with John Boy Walton, it was sick. It might be partially why I'm a writer, because I know Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh is why I live in New York. Okay? You got it, right? Okay. I really am painting myself as a simpleton this evening, aren't I? So easily, I don't know, inspired. But, okay, so get this. So we're 7 kids growing up in economic uncertainty in the 1970s in Virginia, in Appalachia. And my favorite show makes its debut, which was about 7 economically strapped kids in the Blue Ridge Mountains in the Great Depression. This is one of the great things. I loved John Boy so much that I thought, if I ever meet him, I'll probably die. So the Library of Virginia honors Earl Hamner Jr., who to me was the man. And I'm the MC of the evening. And when they called me to say, we're thinking of honoring Earl Hamner, I said, I will call him and beg him to come. It didn't take much begging. His sisters and brothers came and everything. They live in Virginia. And Earl Hamner, in the last part of his life, became like an angel mentor to me. Come to find out that his mother's maiden name was Giannini. But it wasn't Giannini with a Y, it was Giannini. And her family, 3 generations before, came to America, maybe more than 3 generations. The Gianninis came from Italy via Thomas Jefferson, who wanted to grow grapes in Virginia on Monticello. That was one side of the family. And the other side, the Hamners, were Virginia stock, farmers, tobacco farm, that whole wrap, okay? So once Earl said yes, I called the library and said, we have to get John Boy to come, Richard Thomas. We have to invite him. And they said, well, why don't you invite him? Because I'm in show business. They thought I could get him. I tracked him down, and I called him, and I was so nervous. I was like, we're going to honor Earl Hamner. He said, I will be there. So I got that dream. I met John Boy and Earl Hamner in one night. Why did I tell you that? Because it's very simple. But anyway, because you asked me about that. Yeah, so I had a full circle moment with the both of them. And he did not disappoint. Richard Thomas, as cute as he could be and really nice. And he didn't change much from when he played John Boy. It's not like when that guy who played Robin on Batman and Robin, he completely went down the sinkhole. He looks good now. What was his name? Bert something. What was it? Burt Ward. He was the most gorgeous. Wasn't he cute when we were kids? Yeah. Yeah, he lost his way. I think he's back to looking good again. I don't know.
All right. Okay. Why don't we bring up the
dread
lights?
If he sees this, Bert, I still think you're hot. I'll say.
We have microphones in the two aisles. If you step forward and say your name and ask away if anyone chooses to do so. Don't be shy. Any fans of the Waltons? Well, we can just keep talking amongst ourselves here. The person is terrified that she will run out of her candles before she finishes the book.
You asked me right here. Did you notice I had no idea where you were? I was looking up to our friends up here.
No, that's back there.
Oh, where is it? Okay.
Imagining an episode of like a storywriter, and she's panicking, she's out of her candle.
That's a great. Okay, you're going to write that story. I could always use your help. Yeah. You know, you don't run out because of a little store called Home Goods. I load up there. Some of the candles I get are this big. Yeah. But
Joe.
that's a good point. That's a really good point. You could run out.
My question, I'm curious about your journey in writing itself. Like when you were at St. Mary's, you talked about this theatrical thing, but in terms of the craft of writing, can you tell us about how that developed through your life?
Absolutely. Okay. So I would say instrumental in teaching me how to tell a story was I worked at a radio station as a roving reporter when I was 15. To be paid $5 a story, see, for me, it's never about the money. It's about the experience. So I went into journalism at the age of 15 and went to town meetings and reported exactly what I heard and saw, and I was constantly in trouble. I was constantly called in to the boss's office, Mr. Stallard at WNVA radio station. And you can only imagine, like, my glasses were like this thick. You know, and he smoked like a chimney, and his office was glass. The glass was dirty, and he used to smoke. And I thought, I'm going to get sick in here, because he really smoked. But I would just go in there, and I would get cussed out. It's not your opinion. You don't give your opinion. Because I would say, so-and-so did such and such in the meeting. And there was quite a tumult in the air. Like, I made up things like that. He said, nobody wants to know how the air was in there. They just want you to know. And then I had, before I went to St. Mary's, the summer before I went, I thought I was going to be a journalist. And something happened, and I posted a story, and I had a friend tell me what really happened. It was a personal tragedy. And I wrote it, and I posted it, and then I panicked. And I called my boss, Mr. Hollyfield, and I said, you can't run that story because I sourced him, but it'll hurt the family. And then he said, well, we want to run it. And I said, please, I'm begging you, don't run it. And I was praying, like, dear God, if you don't run it, then I won't be a journalist. It went to Mr. Stallard, and he said, don't run it if she feels that strongly about it. I got off the hook, and then I went, I'm going to go into dramatizing. I'll be a playwright or something. I just, because I love writing plays too. But I had this dream about the Columbia School of Journalism. I don't know where it got into my head. I didn't know anything about it. I'm from Big Stone Gap. Nobody's presented this school as anything. And then later, one of my friends said, oh, you used to go in the guidance office and look at those pamphlets that colleges send, you know, for people to apply. And I think that's where I got it. But I bet, so the first thing was writing for a newspaper. I did all the newspaper writing, like school newspapers and stuff. And then I did the radio writing. And I learned how to be concise. and to boil it down. The craft is, and I still have notes from then, like the way I put a story together, I look like somebody's crazy. But I learned how to organize my thoughts. The craft of writing is to write. You get a notebook, you get a pen, and you begin. Some days you might write a phrase, and then another day it's a paragraph. And the next day it's a page. It's a discipline. It's like ballet or anything repetitive. You develop a technique in order to do it. So the craft for me is a 7-day-a-week operation. I have to do it every single day. Did that help? Did I answer it?
Is there a page count you have, or I mean, just simple question?
I don't do any of that page count stuff because I don't understand that. Somebody said to me, "We'd like you to write 10,000 words." That to me could be, I don't know, a book like a phone book. I don't know. I've had to learn that now the computer keeps track of it, which is helpful. But I don't do it like that. I outline. Oh, I should tell you this part. I outline the whole story. And then I am free within the discipline of the outline to change it.
So you outlined this book. You lit the candle.
Oh, I outlined. This book, went through many incarnations. And I rip them out. And then I focus in on, this book developed a certain rhythm. You're going to see it goes in and out, the present and her past. And she's 34, so it's 1994 till now, or 1995. So those years. But it's her memories, and she's a kid when the town changes its name that I mentioned. Yeah. So the methodical outlining. And once you do it, you have to decide when you print it out, am I going to show it to somebody? That's a leap of faith right there. And then imagine when everybody reads it. And I don't look, I haven't, because I really haven't had time, and I have the phone, I don't have the computer with me. But when people write in that have read it, and they'll say, I just didn't like the way she, and I go, oh no. Because, you worry about that. You want everybody to love it, But as my mother said to me when I came home from kindergarten, everybody isn't going to like you. Let it go.
Susan, over here. We'll get to you in just a moment. Yeah.
Adriana,
Susan.
welcome back to Traverse City.
Thank you, my
From
love.
Michigan Writers. We're so glad you're here. You probably know we're going to have a big wine and food festival at the end of August. So one of my questions is about people loving to read about food. And in a cookbook, they now look for the narration as well as the recipes and the photos. So can you talk about writing about food, like what you think about that?
Oh, Susan, it'd be my thrill. You only have the 5 senses to engage the reader. And to me, taste is a big one. But what do I focus on in terms of food when I'm outlining? Your great question, what's the process? And so when I'm outlining, I have a column on the side of the page is, what would they be eating? So when I went to Carrara, Italy, I said, do the miners eat anything special? Because in Pennsylvania, and you'll relate to this here too, like the folks that worked in factories or mines, like there's a thing that the English created we call it a pasty. It's a meat pot. Oh my God, it's the most delicious. If they had a sale right now, we'd all leave en masse and go eat them. In Pennsylvania, they're shaped like this, and there's meat and filled with, oh my. And that crust, it's kind of like a portable pot pie, really. So when I go to Italy to research this, they said, you must have the lardo. And I thought, oh, God. You know, I'm a person who has an unwrapped or Pilates machine. I don't know if I should be eating any lardo, you know? So, but it's important because lardo has to do with the marble. You only can cure this pork fat in a marble tureen with a lid that they've carved. Like everybody's lardo, it's old, okay? It's like they're from ancient times. So you put this fat in there with these herbs, and then you seal it. This is this big square of fat with herbs. That's it. And it cures in there for months. Then, okay, I asked how they made it after I ate it, which was smart. Because it's fat. Why? Because those men who are shearing the marble off the mountain are doing it in the blazing sun. They're all thin because of the altitude and the level of the physical work. So when you have the lardo, when it's done, you take the lid off and you slice it thin and you put it on hot bread. It is the most delicious thing I ever ate, okay? But I didn't know what it was. It looked creamy to me, like some kind of, I didn't know what it was. But later when they said fat, I got it. Fat is delicious. Ain't nothing wrong with fat. But it was the herbs, the curation of the herbs, and every family in Carrara has a different recipe. It's like our gravy or our sauce. It's all the same. But the whole process, so I put the recipe in here in case you want to make it. And then, again, I go through this. Where'd Susan go? Am I looking at her? Where'd she go, Susan? Right back there? Oh, God, you went all the way back. Okay. So then what I do, Susan, like when I'm making my list, then I pick the stuff that's the most disparate from each other. So the lardo was savory. So what's the opposite of that? A zeppoli, which is basically a donut, an Italian donut. And the recipe's in here. And that recipe is my mother's. Yeah. So that's how I do it. So a zeppoli to me is like, oh, it's a festival, a carnival, a state fair, a something, like a funnel cake or something. So that's how I did it. Because I wanted to have Italian recipes, and then I wanted to have Italian-American, they're New Jersey recipes.
Go right ahead.
Hi. Well, thank you. It's been lovely. I was invited by dear friends Marguerite and Vida Ruggiero. And Marguerite is a huge fan of yours, and she had written something. Yeah. She didn't want to come up, so I offered to come.
How come? Why didn't you want to come up?
She's a huge fan. She's read all of your books. And this quote she brought for you was from the Supreme Macaroni Company, published in 2014. And it reads like this. It's important to accept the happy life when it's presented to you. The only time you can go wrong is when you make decisions to please others and not yourself. Thank you.
Wow. Is that from my book? I think she's got some potential. First of all, may I say, thank you. I am deeply moved that you've read them all and that they matter to you. That I'm going home very rich tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Wouldn't it be terrible if I got hit by a bus tomorrow? The last thing they'd say, she told us last night how much she appreciates. But I know. My luck, that's exactly what will happen.
I think we have time for one more right here.
My name is Sally.
Hi, Sal.
Do you ever struggle with like a story or a character that just doesn't come together, and then you end up writing another story or character that's easier, but that story is still, bothering you, wanting to come to the surface, or some just harder than others, I guess is my question.
Wow, that very huge question.
Sorry.
No, but I love it.
Okay.
I love a challenge. If I could go back to what we talked about earlier, I don't believe in writer's block. I've never had it. Now that's not to say what we do is easy. My grandmother used to say to me, nobody has to see how many times you rip out the hem. She was a seamstress. Now, anybody here sews, you know what she's talking about. Maybe rip that hem out maybe 40 times to get it right? Get those stitches just exactly right. The same is true of the written word. But I believe that when I talk about the journey of the soul, is the complete infallibility of the soul. The easiest way I can describe this is it's your subconscious. Right now we're all sitting in this room, but your subconscious is working for you. And what you tell that subconscious formulates your thoughts. So if you say to yourself, I'm terrible, I can't get this right, what a stupid character, I can't write, I can't do it. You're going to be confused. But if you say, just start practicing this technique a few minutes before you go to sleep and you're drifting off to sleep and you've done your gratitude and you've said your prayers or whatever you do, whatever your routine is, you say to your subconscious, tomorrow morning, show me the way. Pam is in the scene in the barn. She's holding a gas can. What happens next? And in my situation, I get up the next morning and I have the answer. Make a few notes as I'm doing the coffee. And then I adjust it. Now you might say, that sounds like magic. It is a technique. I'm talking to you right now and answering this incredibly deep question you asked me, but my subconscious is working on my next novel. The knowingness of that subconscious is limitless. What you tell it, what you believe, that's where that lives. And it's very hard to change the direction of what you're telling yourself if you believe it's a mess or it's a jumble. But if you think about it, go to sleep dreaming about it, your subconscious is going to sort it. I mean, the whole idea of a computer, I didn't understand till a computer inventor, I talked to him, they modeled it after our brain. But a computer doesn't have a soul. We do. What electricity fuels a computer, your soul's vision serves the story. So I would say, look, I have notebooks full of stuff I may never get to. Make notes on it. And what eventually happens, it's like you continue to knead the dough. And that character that wasn't working shows up over here. Because, again, that subconscious never steers you wrong. Never, never, never. So you throw nothing out. You leave nothing on the floor. Everything that you have created cannot be destroyed. It's where does it fit into the overall scheme of what you're trying to do. But give it time. Just give it a minute. Give it maybe, sometimes I give it 30 years. and eventually will come around. Eventually comes around.
Thank you so much, Adriana.
Thank you,
That is
Doug.
beautiful. This has been a wonderful night.
Thank you.
I've learned things. And thank you all. Please join us in the lobby.
Thank you for joining us for this special presentation from the National Writers Series. Coming up Friday, July 25th at 7 p.m., don't miss an evening with debut author Katie Yee and her novel Maggie, or A Man and a Woman Walk Into a Bar. It's the story of a young mom who learns that her husband has fallen in love with someone else. Soon after comes the second bombshell. The pain in her chest isn't heartbreak, it's breast cancer. She handles the terrible news with sharp wit, a fierce will to survive, and telling her children bedtime stories that are rooted in Chinese folklore. Maggie is on many summer's best read lists like Time Magazine, New York Times, and Oprah Daily. In August, don't miss our 2 Traverse City Food and Wine events with Anthony Porowski of Queer Eye, along with a panel event where top chef winners dish about reality TV cooking shows, and give you an opportunity to buy their cookbooks. For more information, go to nationalwritersseries.org.